Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Garrett. Welcome back to rather a Skype session with Carrie Lloyd, the author of the Virgin Monologues and Prude, and also a youth pastor at Bethel. And if you were with us last week, you know that we have been having an amazing conversation about all kinds of things, from missions and mission trips and purity and young people. And today, well, I have Carrie with us in today's session. What I really wanted to talk about is something that I think will really resonate in the hearts of many of you. And I want to talk about what it means to stand in the waiting for your spouse. Because I know that not everybody is married. And I honestly was single longer than I've been married. So I know from personal experience that so many men and women find their time single to be a real pain in the neck to live through. I guess, you know, if Gwyneth Paltrow and her husband consciously uncoupled, why does it seem that society makes you feel like you're so bizarre if you are consciously not coupled?
I know. I think I don't understand why. I mean, I think it's been like this from the age of time, really. But I do think because we have a faith that focuses so much on covenant and marriage, I think we do feel like there's more of a pressure and a you know, we're saving ourselves, so to speak. So the reality is there are certain parts of our nature and our sexuality. I remember talking to a girlfriend about this who's also in her 30s and single and a Christian. And I said, I wonder if we'd want to be married quite so much if we weren't celibate for the time that we wait for them. I wonder if this pressure wouldn't be quite so much, because we are sexual beings. And the reality is there are urges and desires that we would love to have quenched at some point. But I think there's something about being single that we feel like, does anyone want to choose me? Until I'm married, I'm not choosable, or I'm not worthy of being chosen. If I'm single, I'm unlovable in some way. And I think it's almost like, I remember when I was younger, I used to think, well, if I had an empire or a sort of large legacy under just myself, I'd probably feel a lot better about being single. But until that actually happens, right. Or I need to have a family, and
Right.
So it seems to be people like Coco Chanel or Condoleezza Rice, those women who have done amazing impacts in the world. It's fine if they're single because they're doing a good job and they're winning Nobel Peace Prizes or creating fashion empires. But if I'm, if I'm little Carrie Lloyd over here that is writing about relationships, everyone, especially for me, everyone wants me to have the happy ending. Right. They want to see book 3, where I actually met Chris Pine in a restaurant and I saved him on our first date. We shared communion, and the rest is history, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what you can win when you save yourselves.
Right. So, girls across the globe will be shutting their legs forever.
Exactly. It's so funny.
But it is almost that people think that you're not happy if you're not. And then you begin to believe it yourself.
I know. I mean, the people go, how is that for you? How is it? And I'm like, well, some days I want to throw myself off the precipice. Other days, I hold myself back. But they're like, really? And I'm like, well, no. I would say this, though. The more I get asked it, the more I start to question if there is something wrong. And pretty much every day I'll get someone come up to me going, I had a prophetic word about your husband. I had a dream that you were married. Or I noticed you don't have a ring on your finger, but you seem confident. Can you pray for me? Or so, these kind of wonderful things. And I'm like, sure. But I'm trying to. But here's the deal. Like 70% of females in the church are single and 30% of males in the church are single. So ratio-wise, unless 50% of the women go and marry non-Christians, right, or we have more men coming to the church that are single, we have to get to the reality of, like, actually, some of us are going to stay single. I don't mean to be miserable, and I do believe that God does the impossible, so I'm very aware of that. But I'm also here's the deal, and I said this to a lot of the girls at Bethel. I just went, here's the deal, all of us could actually be married tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So my singledom is actually a choice. Mm-hmm. It's not I'm a victim to being single because there's no good men out there. No, that's not the reality. The reality is I could marry great men who are in the secular world who just don't believe in the Lord, and they just think I believe in Santa Claus, which isn't necessarily going to find the depth that I would love in a marriage and be able to share and pray with my husband and, make decisions about kingdom values with. But what I do love is that the Lord is just, he satiates and fulfills areas that I would love to have fulfilled. I'd love to be a mother, but he gave me 62 Bethel students, which are quite a beautiful responsibility in itself. And I get very maternal and very protective over them, and I love them as if they're my own. And so he does do sweet things that sort of comforts and edifies me in my single season. And too often the enemy is trying to distract us from the season that we're meant to be in, to want us to be in a season that we're not supposed to be in right now. And so
Totally.
I'm very aware that nobility looks like I'm choosing, even though it might be painful on days, and I think it's important to recognize it's pain, it's just you honoring the desires of your heart in that level. There's something about just going, actually, this week, I'm staying single. Next week, I might be in a season of being in a relationship, but for the moment, it's noble to choose and to rest and trust in the fact that this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I used to really, when I finally got to a point of being healthy in the waiting, of being single, it was really about, I started to appreciate getting to know myself in a way that I never had before. And finding peace, sort of doing things with me that I would have normally allowed other people to make me feel strange about doing. But all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I can be in a relationship, but I don't want to be in any old relationship. I want the relationship that God wants for me. And unless and until I have that, then I'm going to enjoy going to the movies with myself. I'm going to enjoy taking vacations with myself. I'm going to enjoy friendships and relationships. Right?
It's so true.
What are you, I have a mistake, and I think maybe I would love to hear you speak to this. What are the common mistakes that you think people make while they're in the waiting season of their life?
Yeah. All the mistakes I make, basically, which is, because I think I've done all of them.
I know I did.
Yeah.
This is why I like to ask the question and let you answer it.
Okay, I should get my journal for this. Hang on, just to... So I think one of the biggest ones is we have such a need and a desire to find that intimacy. I'm not scared of intimacy. I love the idea of intimacy. So I've never been one for like, oh, I want to be single all my life. And so, and I love men. I think they're an amazing gender. And I just... I go through processes where, a very sweet, gorgeous, charming guy could come and sort of flatter me and sweep me off my feet if I'm not careful. And before I know it, I'm starting to settle in really subtle areas, whether it's, so there's a bit of a purity thing I've noticed that he's got, or I've noticed that there's a bit of a mismanagement with other women, or I've noticed there's, all of these kind of things. And because of my pastoral heart, I always find in the gold in everyone. So I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And before I know it, I'm settling for stuff that I actually didn't have in my dreams. And fortunately, the Lord's such a good father that Papa is just so good at going, oh, sweetheart, I know you want that, but that's actually not what you need. And if we could just go back before this guy came in and swooned you for a few weeks, actually, you wanted steadfast. You didn't want charming. You wanted steadfast. You wanted integral. You wanted a solid sense of character. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And that these don't match up on this particular level. And sometimes they pull through it and you just keep going. And other times, so I think settling for something that we know isn't healthy for us. So settling for bad healthy, not bad healthy, that's the wrong word to describe it. Poor emotional health, I think we can settle for. I think a lot of times people compromise on their purity, whether it's porn addictions or all different types of places that, we can start to go, wow, this is just a short-term fix. I'm going to hold out for them, but somehow I'm just going to compromise myself in certain levels. And then I think also we do start to do that thing of, when we're not being chosen, we feel like we're being rejected. We're just not being chosen. There's a difference of being unchosen and being rejected.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that I think we do singledom within community. I've never been so blessed in my life as I am these days, with such an incredible family around me and friends that just remind me who I am every day. And there probably would have to be about, if a guy, say, for example, is interested in me, he'll probably have to go to about 3 or 4, not because I can't make a decision for myself or don't trust myself, but more like, no, these guys, the fathers in my life really value who I am and they know what's really good for me. So I always, if they were to say no, and actually it was not too long ago that one of my friends' husbands, slid me a cup of tea, and I was just talking about this guy that I really liked. And he slides his cup of tea along the counter and he just goes, no.
Wow.
And I was like,
yeah.
What? Yeah. Well, and me and the wife were like, why? And he's like, the fairy tale is real. It is possible. And that doesn't mean to say that it doesn't come with work, but it is possible. And I just want you to be happy. And it's nothing that you've actually said about this guy, but there's something about how you've been iterating some concerns or some, I'm not looking always for flaws or problems, but it's just, just the basics of integrity and character and kingdom lifestyle and that kind of thing is pretty important to me. So until my choice is actually to be single is a choice because of the standard that I have for what we're looking for. But it really helps me to have people that will go, I've never been accused of being too picky. It's always been the other way around. Carrie, you're being far too merciful.
Yeah. Yes.
And this guy isn't going to take care of you the way that we want you to be taken care of. So, so they've been very helpful to me. And if they say no, then I actually trust them enough to go, actually, all right, we're just going to stay friends, but we're not going to have a relationship,
I think you're right. And I think that is a big mistake that people do make in the waiting season, is that they don't get enough good, godly people that they're willing to be really honest and transparent with, to speak into their lives and give them that thumbs up or thumbs down based on the fact that I know you and I love you.
Totally. There's something, if they say no to a few potentials but then they say yes to a guy, there's nothing more amazing than going out with a guy that they say yes to, and then you feel like it's such an amazing covering from a bunch of people and families that are like, we're for you. And then when you're going through the journey of just learning each other, you're like, oh, that's normal. I didn't realize that's okay, good to know. Oh, yeah, sweetheart, that's what we did in the beginning of our marriage. That's what happened, So you get all these great pieces of advice that you just feel very covered, very supported, and also very educated in how to do a healthy relationship. So I rarely see it go that wrong. And even if you don't work out, the breakup is still very healthy and it's well handled. Because you're still in community.
Yes, exactly. I love. We did a show together with a woman who was lovely, and she said, you have to date in such a way that when you give the person to whomever is their true spouse, if in fact they're not yours, you can turn them over and say, hey, I just want you to know I took really good care of your wife, or I took really good care of your husband for you, and didn't touch her or him, didn't wound him in any way, and that is really, that was such a powerful and beautiful statement that I've kept with me. And, Lenny, my rock star brother, Lenny Kravitz hated every guy I ever brought in his presence. He hated them. He never gave me a thumbs up. He hated,
would he just be like, no, we're not, I'm not directly looking at you?
Well, looked very rock star from behind the sunglasses. Every now and then they'd kind of come down and he'd go, girl. Girl. Which is, what's that?
Do you listen to him, or would you?
I would.
Would you go?
No, I would.
Wow,
I actually would listen to him because I knew that no one really loved me as much as he did, as a brother, as a woman, on so many different levels. And so I would listen to him because he really knew me. He was one of the few people in my life I showed my vulnerabilities to, and he understood. He got me. He got the good me. He got the bad me. He got the issues, that were me. So he gave his sign of approval to one man and one man only, and that is Roger, my current husband.
Wow. What was it about Roger that you said yes to, just out of interest?
I
I'm interviewing you now.
Yeah, right, exactly. The tables have turned here. I mean, Roger came over, he sat down, and Lenny literally looked at him and he goes, so what are your intentions? I mean, he's quite direct. And I think that he knows that he's very intimidating. Like, he's not just a normal guy sorting you out if you're a guy. I'm sorry, dude, you're getting sorted out by one of the hugest rock stars on the planet, one of the most talented people in the world.
One of the coolest guys in the world, yeah.
Yeah, and a very important man in my life. And so Roger just looked at him and he answered his question and he said, my intentions are to marry her and make her my wife and to treat her the way God would want her treated. What are your intentions? And it was just, I think that what Lenny sensed was this was a guy that was not impressed with persons. He did not care who Lenny was. He didn't care who people were. All he cared about was impressing God and doing things the way that God would have him do things, whether or not it meant he and I ended up together or not. He intended to walk it out in a godly fashion.
So good.
And that was...
I picked that. I mean, the first time I met Roger, I was very impressed by how integral he was, but also, you know, he had thoughts. He knew himself very well, and there was definitely a walk with the Lord that you could feel on Roger. That was a secret place. So you're like, yeah, you can't create that. You can't make that up.
No, you can. It's interesting. You said he's so integral. Yeah. And it does come from knowing yourself, and it kind of leads me to a question. My next question for you, which is, because in this journey of knowing yourself, have you made a list of the things that you want and don't want? And would you recommend to people watching, if they're waiting for their spouse, that they actually be a bit, intentional, I should say, and maybe make a list of the things they want, don't want, or the things you know what I mean?
Totally. Do you know, it's really funny because in Virgin Monologues, I talk about how it's important that we burn all our lists, because we got far too specific, and they must have, blue eyes, dark hair, a little bit of stubble, but not too much, all those kind of things. And none of it has anything to do with the soul. Do you know what I mean? Which are the things that will be the things that will determine whether you want to stay with someone for the rest of your life.
So you've grown from one book to the next a lot.
Yes. So in that one I told us to burn our list, but I would say this. My personal trainer was in the gym with, he trains Benny Johnson, right? And he noticed that Benny was like, oh, three of Carrie's ex-boyfriends are all in the gym at the same time. And he was watching them going, wow, Carrie really doesn't have a type, does she? She just is not particular. They all love the Lord, but they all look very, very different. But anyway, I remember one of the things that, one of my fathers said to me was, Carrie, can I be honest with you? And I said, yeah. He said, I don't think you really know what you want. And so that's been part of your journey. I said, yeah, maybe. I think it's, back in the day, I was like, you like me? Come on in. And I didn't really know myself. I didn't know how I'd be in a team. I didn't know what I brought to the table and what it complements with someone. So actually, in the last few years, I definitely went through, okay, what are the non-negotiables? I think, I met someone from the Malibu Vineyards, the old Malibu Vineyards movement, and she turned to me and she said, you want someone that's going to keep you interested. She said, because you're sort of beautifully complex. You're sort of highly fun, but also have this depth to you. And how do we, all these different things. And I said, yeah, actually, there are parts of the way that I worked out the non-negotiables was actually looking at my closest friends and what is it that's kept us together for so many years.
That's
good. And one of them is also admitting to the fact that I do actually need to be sexually attracted to them.
Yeah.
And I think I was just, so I was constantly trying to compensate or compromise in certain areas. I'm not suggesting that we all need to start being really picky, but I do have a standard that actually takes care of my heart, and I want to take care of his heart too. So I don't want to pretend to be something I'm not, just to appease towards them. So the better I know myself, the less chameleon-like I'm going to start being with him, just so that I can hope it can work.
Absolutely.
'Cause that's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a certain point when I realized that I had literally played a role and was a character in nearly every relationship in my life, except, of course, with the man I finally married.
Yeah.
And I think when we're in the waiting, if we don't if we don't have some awareness on an intentional level of who we are and what we at least don't want, right? Then I think we do start to try to play roles to accommodate being something that fits with someone instead of just kind of being able to edit really quickly. That's, we gotta, I always tell young women and men, edit quickly, because you don't have time to waste, you know?
No, it's so true. I do think that, you know, I stayed with stuff for so long, or I just, you know, a guy would be dishonest over and over again, and I'd still stay in it, and then just all this trust would be broken, and or I was just being controlling, and I was wanting him to be a different way than he was, and so just now it's just so much easier to date, knowing yourself, allowing someone, and just being authentic with yourself. How can I possibly expect someone to fall in love with me if I'm just giving him a performance all the time, or a pretense of something that I'm not going to believe he's going to really love me if I feel like I'm giving this pretense of who I'm supposed to be for the whole time. So,
do you think that is actually one of the reasons why celibacy while you're waiting for your spouse is a good thing, is because of the getting to know? Do you think so? I guess, does sex cut off the getting to know?
Well, I mean, I would probably say it's the opposite. It does everything about getting to know someone. But what it does do is it doesn't give you an executive decision. So there's a really great book called Hooked that talks about, I can't remember who the authors are, but it talks about the science about sex and what it does to the brain and how we get attached. There's 3 different types of drugs that are, or chemicals that are basically released in the brain every time you have sex with someone. So dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. So they're all the high, oh my goodness, this is amazing, drugs that come into your brain. And it forms, especially for women, it forms attachment hormones that you would have normally with your child when you give birth. So now all of a sudden, it's why when I've had 3 sexual relationships in my life, but it's why I couldn't really end relationships that I knew I needed to end, because I was just so bonded to them physically. So it was actually the science of sex that made me want to come back to purity and made me realize, oh, we keep kidding ourselves and we're in denial all the time that it's just sex, or it's not emotional, or no, it's without question emotional. It's not just emotional. It's a physical chemical bonding that can happen. And then there's spiritual soul ties and everything involved. The whole reason why sex is so powerful is to keep us bonding for a long-term relationship. So if I'm using things that actually bond you together, it's a bit like I'm trying to make a decision. I don't want to keep something, but I glued it to my hand. And now I don't know how to get rid of it. So I think for me, I know that I make much more powerful decisions in myself and for them. I think it's more servant-hearted if I don't take advantage of them in any particular way beforehand, because then I can break up. And I've had some really lovely breakups where we've just had really lovely conversations. I think you're a great person, just not feeling it, or don't have the, whatever that thing is, and or you just know that there's something, personality-wise that you need a click or a switch with, or you need to be inspired in some way. And it's too easy to be inspired by everyone. I could have sex with everyone and think that I should marry them all.
Of course, because that's the way it's designed. You've created a soul tie and tied yourself to every single one of them.
Yeah. So now these days, I love conversation. I really love, one of my love languages is quality conversation. Not that that's even one of the love languages, but that's my one. And
that's a great one.
it changes everything for me. And I'm, everything's firing off on all cylinders when I'm having amazing conversations. I love wisdom, I love depth, and I love humor. So I think there's just something in it that I go, there's plenty of time for all of these things. We shouldn't have to get it all resolved in one moment.
I couldn't agree more. I think sort of as we kind of take advantage of the last minute or two that we have, real quickly, what role does understanding your identity play in waiting happily in this season of waiting?
Yeah. I would say a few things. One is it makes sure that I don't act from any kind of state of codependency, because much of my needs is actually met by the Lord on on many levels. I'm actually in a place of just being able to go through a journey of listening to what his desires are, what my journey is, what my season is. I trust him. I'm not looking all the time for the guy, you know.
Yeah.
I enjoy everyone's company, even if there's this wonderful person in front of me that's single and we're having a great time. I'm not instantly thinking, oh, maybe this is it, you know. Yeah. It's just, I trust him. I trust that I don't have to chase. I don't have to change anything in my day. I don't question myself.
Yeah.
And so I used to wonder if there was something wrong with me if I wasn't marrying before 30 or, you know, whatever it is. And now I'm like, no, some of the most amazing people I know are actually still single.
Yeah. And I didn't meet Roger or figure anything out about marriage until I was 41 years old. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's been the part for me. It's just watching really great marriages that did start late 30s, early 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And I met a guy the other night, married for the first time when he was 53. And this man was amazing.
Awesome.
Like, I was so overwhelmed. His faith was incredible. And he said she was without question worth the wait.
That's
and
awesome.
He actually said to me, you know, you've got to understand that sometimes your anointing or whatever your spiritual gifts are can be really intimidating in the earthly realm. So you need to know that there's going to be people that will love that or not know what to do with it. And that really helped me as well.
That's good. That's good. It's all about, I think, and it's why I love having you on the show, because I think that you just have a very contemporary voice for young men and women out there, and old men and old women, you know, because we all tend to experience the same emotions no matter how old we are or how young we are. So I guess just in closing, for the audience of people watching around the world, just kind of complete real quickly these sentences. Marriage should be
fruitful.
Jesus is
love.
I pray your next date is
enjoyable.
Amen. I love it. From that's our wish for all of you watching. We have to go. We are out of time. I love having you, and I hope that you will drop by again, come in again.
I miss you.
I miss
you so much.
I miss you too, and I'm sending you a hug right through the Skype screen.
Well, California misses you.
I'll be back
soon. Yes, exactly.
Bless you, Carrie, and thank you for sharing. I love your heart, and thank you for just being so open.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and you're wonderful, and I love you.
I love you back. And we love you too, and thank you for watching. I'm Cynthia Garrett, and we will see you next week. I really hope you enjoyed this week's session, and I can't wait to be back with you next week. So I just wanted to pop in really fast and remind you to pick up a copy of Prodigal Daughter, A Journey Home to Identity. It's my first book, and it goes through my life and all of the things that God taught me through applying the Word of God to challenges and situations and all kinds of experiences. At the end of the day, it's about finding my identity. And at the end of the day, it's from my heart that all of you would find your identity in Christ. And this book, I really believe, will help you find your identity and own your identity and walk powerfully in your identity, because it's time for you to take a victory lap with Jesus as the guide. So I will see you soon. You can pick it up everywhere, online booksellers and retailers, and I hope you'll be blessed.